Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Ferguson.
Present.
Director Fons.
Present.
Director Herndon.
Present.
Director Jackson is absent at the moment. Director Reza.
Here.
Director Seamson.
Present.
Director Vinoy.
Present.
Director Somber.
Present.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance was recited at the previous meeting, so we're just going to keep it rolling. This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta de la Mesa Directiva de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, para escuchar esta reunión en español, llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número.
For each items of our business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our Secretary, Dr. Owen Moore. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you are called upon. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the rest of the meeting using the broadcast information previously mentioned. Speakers may only address the item for which they have registered. Questions from the public may not be answered during the public comment period. Following public comment, the committee will begin its discussion and no additional comments will be accepted. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. For our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meeting's agendas and minutes page of the MPS website. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments, questions, and requests should be directed to the chair of the committee, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. The board appreciates and encourages stakeholder input and assumes that members of the public will participate in a civil manner. Conduct that prevents a good order of the meeting will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in behavior that persistently disrupts the meeting may be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after the board and its committee. Before we begin, I have been advised that the administration would like to withdraw item 4 with the intention of bringing it to the special meeting on June 17th. Okay. Seeing no objections, we're just going to keep moving then. Now, let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item 1 is consideration of and possible action on proposed amendments to the FY26 Superintendent's proposed budget. There were no amendments submitted in advance for consideration tonight.
Thank you. Does the administration have anything to present? Do any members of the public wish to make comments? And it looks like I do have some speaker slips. We will start with Father Thomas Miller, and then we'll go to Lucas Weir. So as a reminder, please state your name and spell your last name.
Thomas Miller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R. I want to address the issue of the, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I want to address the issue of the elimination of all the central office positions and the firings that went with that. And I understand that there's a human resources issue here, wanting to get human and financial resources into the classroom. I understand that, and I'm not addressing that at all. But I'm addressing the fact that there are about 40, as I understand, about 40 special ed positions that are being eliminated, not only the jobs, but the positions themselves, the services. And these concern, for instance, a woman who provides services to vision impaired students, maybe working out of central office, but she's in the classroom, in the schools every day, working with these very challenged students and with their teachers. That position is eliminated. That's the way I understand it. And then there are a number of transition work positions dealing with transition for special ed students, secondary students. This has to do with transition to jobs and further education after graduation from high school. And this is a vital thing for neurodiverse students, intellectually challenged students, physically challenged students, autistic students. I read in expert commentary that the unemployment rate for autistic people is 37%. And I know from experience with my own grandchildren, one of my grandchildren, as well as parishioners, that if you don't have these transition services, they can crash. And their lives are at risk. The success of their lives after graduation is at risk if they don't have these services. Very important. So now, special needs students come from every race: African American, Asian, Latino, white, whatever.
Okay.
There's no discrimination in terms of race for these disabilities.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your time is up. You can email your comments to
Okay,
the
one
governance
comment.
at milwaukee.k12.wi.us.
One
And
last-
also,
last
you can
sentence.
email it to budget25
Yeah, I will.
at milwaukee.k12.wi.us.
I will. One last sentence.
Thank you. One sentence.
This is a matter of justice. It's an unforced error, and I ask the superintendent to reconsider, and I ask the board to rectify this in the budget, as in the consideration of the budget.
Thank you. Lucas Weir, then Ingrid Walker-Henry.
Lucas Weir, W-I-E-R-E-R. Good evening, Superintendent Casilius, members of the board. Sorry, I've been doing a lot of decluttering, so my thoughts are not as collected as usual. I did want to reiterate comments that came up at the opening budget meeting. I appreciate the concise nature of this budget as opposed to previous budgets, but also, and specifically in relation to the office budget portion, it would be really helpful to have job descriptions. When you look at the school budgets and you see teacher, you may not know exactly who that person is, but you have a pretty good understanding of what a teacher does. As someone who is a huge fan of research and data, I will use research, assessment, and data as an example. Assessment Specialist 3, Director 1 of Student Performance, Research Analyst 3, and Research Specialist 1. I'm not putting value on these human beings or their positions. These may be absolutely essential jobs. But having said that, we have what projects to be about a $100 million budget deficit next year, and we need to start considering the possibility that there are jobs within this building that maybe aren't quite necessary. And I don't know what those jobs are. I'm not an expert. Unfortunately, we don't have a budget expert as teachers, so we don't exactly know where the cuts should come from. But it would be helpful if we at least had some job descriptions. So that is a request. Other things really quick. It says, while it seems unlikely that any right-sizing will take place during the 25-26 school year, it's addressed twice in this proposed budget summary. First, in regards to vacancies on page 13, it states this will require a proactive plan to consolidate under-enrolled schools, eliminate vacant positions, and create efficiencies. It's mentioned a second time on page 41. It says, in reference to facilities and lead mitigation, it states, the district must stabilize lead, right-size enrollment to each school's capacity, efficiently assign students and employ educators, and consolidate schools for more efficient operations. Again, I guess I'm curious as a parent, a teacher, what are the plans moving forward? I know that there were steering committees. I applied to be on one. I was not accepted, and I know there's a website, but it would be nice if we could get more consistent updates. I will submit the rest of my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid Walker-Henry, and then Luz Hernandez.
Good evening, Ingrid Walker-Henry, WALKER-HENRY. MTEA was pleased to see the AFP committee unanimously approve a 2.95 cost of living adjustment for educational assistants, bookkeepers, and teachers on Tuesday. MTEA is asking for the board to approve the same cost of living adjustment for ESP 150 workers and substitute teachers on June 24th. MTEA continues to advocate for MPS administration and the school board to honor the previous administration's promise to provide full extracurricular programming to all middle and high school students. A week ago, the school board and administration heard testimony from high school teachers, Building Representative Justin Bilad at Obama, Building Representative Louis Clem from Washington, Vince Goldstein from Riverside, Building Rep David Eppelsheimer from Guapi, Building Rep Jim Nelson from Golda, Vice President Hernandez, Treasurer Honorado, and myself testifying, imploring the administration to keep their promise and funding extracurricular activities for traditional middle and high schools. MTEA polling of the community during both referendums showed us that one of the primary reasons for Milwaukee families not enrolling their children in MPS is because of a lack of extracurricular offerings. Studies show that extracurricular activities increase attendance, engagement, and achievement. Students in MPS are in need of positive, structured after-school programming and activities. The board has the power to do the right thing for our students and to increase student enrollment. As the president of the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association, representing over 5,700 public education workers and a parent of an MPS freshman, I am calling on all board members to honor the promises made to students, workers, and families to guarantee a well-rounded slate of extracurricular offerings to our students. The school board has the authority to approve a budget amendment that would make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Luz Hernandez.
Luz Hernandez, HERNANDEZ. I am an MPS bilingual teacher and also serving as MTEA vice president. Superintendent Caselius abandoned the agreement between MTEA and MPS and broke MPS's promise to provide a full array of extracurricular activities to all middle and high school students. MTEA members have been advocating for MPS administration to provide dedicated funding to expand extracurricular opportunities for students for 4 years and finally reached an agreement with the former superintendent in the spring of 2024. Studies show that students who participate in extracurricular activities tend to have better academic engagement, motivation, and achievement. Studies show that extracurricular participation is associated with better attendance, higher graduation rates, higher GPAs, and better SAT and ACT scores. Extracurriculars provide opportunities to develop social skills, explore their interests and passions, and build relationships outside of academics. The school board must take action to put dedicated funds for student extracurriculars into the 25-26 budget. This is what our students deserve, and they are counting on all of us here to deliver for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? President Zambor?
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. I do have a question about the 2.95%. One of the speakers mentioned the ESP 150. Can administration clarify, and so those are educational support personnel. I think that's building service helpers, and I should know this. Administration probably knows what ESP 150 includes, but can you clarify that the same 2.95% cost of living adjustment, is that going to that bargaining unit? And I think there was another one that was mentioned.
It might have been the substitute.
Oh, substitute teachers. And I think substitute teachers, I think we already knew that was included, right?
But maybe can administration
Yeah,
speak
thank
to
you.
that, please?
Good evening, Nick Sinram, Budget Director for Milwaukee Public Schools. Yes, can absolutely speak to that. The 2.95% cost of living adjustment applies to all MPS employees.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up, Chair or President Zambor?
I do have a
Yes.
follow-up, and this is not something that someone mentioned, but it's something I've noticed in the past. We can go back and look at it, but I didn't see anything about coaches with athletics, and I know I've asked about this before. Are coaches, the coach range included in that?
Administration?
It usually is not. I don't think that's ever been included for a very long time, but I'm just asking if anything changed this year.
Administration, can you speak to whether that would apply to coaches as well, please?
Nick Sinram, MPS Budget Director. You're correct that that would not apply to the part-time coaches.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's it for now.
Okay, Director Fons?
Yeah, my question or comments are coming from the perspective of a new board member, and looking at the way things have occurred over the last few months. My understanding is that if there's any major economic or financial decisions made by the administration, that the board has to be in on those decisions. We have a very major accessing, I put that in quotes, program that was put forward because when I put it in quotes, because we seem to have past practices that have procedures for what accessing is, and this doesn't look like an accessing plan to me. And over the last 10 years or so, we've have the new post-Act 10 world. No, we don't have a contract, and I'm just wondering if the policies that we have established, when I was a worker here and as a teacher, are those going to be honored, or is that all that meet and confer process, is that all just going to be, by fiat ended?
Administration? It is budget related. We can put it under budget, so any comments?
Chair O'Halloran and Director Fons, I'm not sure I know exactly what question that you are asking, but we did have a work session that I brought forward, the changes that I was hoping to make, and we discussed those. I will continue to bring forward to the board decisions in a very transparent manner. I did have meet and confer sessions with the union, multiple items of concern for them during the past 2.5 months. And so I can't speak specifically to what was in all of those sessions, but I can share that we did discuss many times the items of accessing teachers and doing the restructuring changes that I had proposed. There were items, that they disagreed with. They shared with me that they disagreed with those, but I did respectfully engage with them my plans for this restructuring within the district and what the goals were of that restructuring.
Okay. Thank you. Any follow-up, Director Fons?
Yeah, I would say that if there's a major issue, if there's a major policy that's implemented, I'm just wondering what role the board is playing if administration just does these things and then says, well, this is what we're doing. I mean, I know we have ability to amend the budget and those types of things, but I think I would, speak for myself, appreciate more input when major decisions like that are going to be made ahead of time.
Sure.
Thank you. And I do hear from administration the eagerness to engage the board, including in the work sessions. But if there is anything else that you would like to say.
Chair O'Halloran, also Director Fons, respectfully, I will definitely make sure that there is plenty of time in the work sessions, that you get plans well above time, and that you know those plans, and that you have plenty of time to give me feedback in those, as well as the union and other interested parties to give interest into those. Particularly this fall, we'll be doing strategic planning. We'll be doing a lot of planning around the budget. We have hard decisions to make as a community with $100 million that we potentially may have to cut if there's not additional revenue coming to the district. So I recognize that these are all really tough decisions, and the decisions that are coming before us that are merging schools, closing schools, are going to be even more challenging for us. I also want you to know I'm looking forward to working with the union on a co-curricular plan. It's not that I'm abandoning co-curricular. I think it's incredibly important. I was a middle school administrator, school leader, teacher, high school leader and teacher. It's incredibly important to have these kind of connectedness for students, and so I look forward to bringing forward a plan to you all. It was just too short of time to be able to bring forward a fully baked plan on how that could be equitably done across all of the schools. And so, but I commit to looking at that and bringing forward a plan on how we might be able to find the resources. Of course, in a resource-strapped, situation coming forward, I'm not sure what decisions and trade-offs and opportunity costs you all will make in the future. I also do want to, just because you may not know, Director Fons, is that I did get a legal opinion. I did look at all of the employee handbook. I am following the agreements on the employee handbook. And so I wanted to just let you know and the public know that I did respect the employee handbook that were previous agreements made with our employees.
Thank you, administration. Do we have any other committee comments or questions? Okay, I'm going to actually pass the gavel.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Administration just touched on it a little bit. So we heard at the first hearing about equity, we heard extracurriculars, and above everything, we have kind of that lens of the audits. It's my understanding that one of the areas that have been looked at are the inequitable distribution of extracurriculars. And so I appreciate administration's willingness to offer to bring back a plan. And I would just ask that we put a timeline and formalize that. It's not necessarily an amendment per se for this item, but just ask that that plan come back maybe with the October budget adjustment cycle, and whether that includes finding additional resources or, leveraging Milwaukee Recreation, if we can work with them to create plans or co-oping, just making sure that if there isn't something at a school, is it a money-related issue? Is it because they don't have the correct advisors? Just being intentional about how it comes back to us and something that is realistic and sustainable, given that, as we speak about frequently, that we are facing a very large deficit. I would not want to put additional resources at this time only to cut the legs out the following year. And so I would like to make a motion that we formalize that to make sure it comes back in the October cycle, please.
Administration, would you like to respond?
Chair O'Halloran, I commit, and the staff will commit to bringing those plans forward. I think it's really important. We'll have a lot more information in October on the budget. I will have also the academic audit by that time, and we will see the priorities in that audit, as well as the operational audit, and better understanding our fiscal position then to be able to make those trade-offs and have the community respond to what those trade-offs are. There's going to be, again, hard decisions that we're going to have to make together to structurally fix this budget, and so I appreciate that. I do also just want to take a point of privilege to address the father's concern about our special ed positions, because I think it's important, because special ed matters to me. My son is special ed, and, it is incredibly important that we provide support to our special ed teachers. We are adding 16 classrooms in special ed and 35 additional teachers to the special ed. We are also, in the vision area, we cut one position because it was vacant for 2 years. I'm looking at every vacancy right now. That does not mean that will impact services to our students. We reduced our transition coordinators from 11 to 10. So, it's one position, and we think that we can absorb that position within that to still serve our students with transition needs, and it's so important as they age out of our schools that they are able to live as independently as possible. And then, and all of those 42 positions that were eliminated, some were vacant, and those were not all special ed positions. So I just want to be clear with that. The transition coordinators were from 18 to 12. I misspoke, so I apologize for that.
Okay. Madam Chair, you want to follow up at all?
No, but I did make a motion. So.
Right. There is a motion on the floor, so should I pass it back?
You just call the roll.
Oh. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll on Director O'Halloran's motion?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to direct administration to bring back a plan in October to address extracurricular equity and to bring forward budget recommendations related to this plan? Yes. Director Ferguson?
Aye.
Director Fons?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Reza?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Benoit?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right, I'm going to take the gavel back. As a reminder, the board will hold a public hearing on June 17th, strictly for giving the public an opportunity to speak on the budget. The committee will have a final meeting on June 24th, primarily to consider any budget amendments. Please, public comments will be accepted at that meeting. Both meetings start at 5:30 here in the Central Services Auditorium. And Madam Secretary, please note that Director Jackson has joined us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, item 2 is consideration of and possible action on restructuring the charges of the committees on parent and community engagement and student achievement and school innovation. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Thank you. Would the Office of Board Governance please present the item?
Yes, this is an item that has been discussed quite a bit over time, and the idea would be to restructure the PACE committee a little bit so that it's retitled to align with the Family and Community Engagement Department and aligns better with some of the activities that are happening there. And then also to move a couple of the items that are academic related into the SASE committee so that the PACE committee can be more of that family and community engagement. So the special education and Title I activities would move to SASE. and PACE would focus on that family and community engagement with an alternating month where it would be the agenda items, and the other one would be a meeting that was more of a community engagement. And I know that Director Ferguson has done a lot of work and talk with this regard, so I hope I captured that well.
Thank you. Does that conclude your remarks?
That does.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off. Before we go to public comment, would either of the chairs of SASE or PACE like to comment? I
Sure.
see Director Ferguson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we, in joining in with the superintendent, she's creating a new office of family and community engagement. And so we thought it was prudent to create a strategic alignment between this board's committee to align directly to the new office that she is introducing. And so that's why you see this request to sort of restructure the PACE committee.
Okay, thank you. And then we also have the chair of the SASE committee. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions or comments. I support the change, and I think that it's a really good focus for the PACE committee, and it makes sense to move those items that are under PACE. It aligns better with the goals of that committee, so I think it's a good, smart move. I have a question, but I'll wait until after public comment.
Okay, thank you, Director Simpson. Okay, we will go to the public comments. We have one virtual speaker.
Anita Garrett, can you hear us? Anita Garrett, are you online?
Okay, maybe technology, we can, or someone can work to make contact. In the meantime, we have two speaker slips. One is Mr. Lucas Weir, and the next is Father Tom Miller. I withdraw. All right, then we'll just hear from Mr. Lucas Weir.
Lucas Weir, W-I-E-R-E-R. Good evening again. So I wanted to speak tonight. First of all, I appreciate the name change of PACE to Family and Community Engagement. It just makes it more inclusive, so I appreciate that. I did want to speak for, or at least uplift the words of Larry Hoffman, member of Mike Education Task Force. As a member of ARWE, Aspiring Anti-Racist White Educators, we've worked in community for the last couple years, giving testimony around discipline disproportionality in the district. So he writes, the monthly reports to the PACE committee, most recently titled Enhancing Educational Communities and School Climate, have been invaluable to the public in helping board members determine how to modify the administration's approach in order to end racial discrimination in MPS. Whatever way you modify these two committees, please ensure that those reports are presented to the public for discussion every month, and that the agendas are not too crowded to allow enough time for review and critiques of the report. He continues, PACE and SASE have been essential in allowing committed, equity-oriented individuals and community groups to provide input on matters of racial equity, particularly about whether and how the complicated list of actions taken by MPS has been effective or not in its efforts to comply with the district's 2018 OCR agreement with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, OCR. Those groups have included the MICA Education Task Force, Aspiring Anti-Racist White Educators, the Black Educators Caucus, and Leaders Igniting Transformation. Additionally, I just wanted to say really quick, specifically around the issue of discipline disproportionality, and with comments made earlier about access to programs, specifically extracurriculars. I do think one of the things that, will it be called FACE, that FACE should potentially address would be this idea that providing equitable opportunities exists in healthy schools. And many people, especially within these organizations, have been asking for years to improve the health of some of our buildings. So yes, of course, we want extracurriculars. We want the things that all the flagship schools in our district has, but something needs to change from the way that business has been handled for the last 5+ years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weir. Were we able to get in contact with our virtual speaker, Ms. Anita Garrett?
She's not on the platform.
Okay. All right, then we will move to committee members. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? I'm looking at Director Simpson.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, I think this is a great way to move forward with the FACE committee, and I was just wondering in terms of like the alternate plan for having it be a kind of less structured discussion, if those will have like focus topics. I know that Director Leonard had kind of sort of gotten the ball rolling with the focus conversations around safety, and just wondering if that will be sort of a similar format, if anyone knows the answer to that yet.
Maybe we can start with Director Ferguson if you have a vision for how the community input sessions can go.
Absolutely. I think Director Leonard sort of laid out a great framework for a way that the community could engage with the board in a more productive way and in a way that seems a little bit more natural to them as well. So my intent is for us to keep that structure, that model that he introduced. All of the meetings won't be like that. We'll have formal meetings sort of like this as well, but in addition to, we'll also have those special task-based sort of meetings that Director Leonard introduced.
Okay, do you have follow-up?
No, not a follow-up. I did appreciate that structure because I agree, people who were very interested in that topic from really many different groups within our MPS family. We had some employees there and some family members there. So I think that was just a really great way to bring in a diverse group of people to talk about a particular topic. So I'm grateful for the change and glad to hear that will continue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do any other committee members? I see Director Jackson.
Yeah, a question. So where would it be as well under FACE now? Students with disabilities as well as our special ed students, would that fall under FACE?
That would be under SASE.
That would be
in
under
this
SASE.
change, yep.
And then I see administration also has their hand up.
Chair O'Halloran, I did want to respond to Director Simpson's question, and now also Director Jackson's question. Director Ferguson and I have talked about the structure of the Family and Community Engagement Office and how they'll engage also with the public, although it's not directly related to the policy framework here. We do plan on monthly meetings in each of the board directors' relative districts, and then working with our parent coordinators to go to those meetings, and hopefully our school leaders will show up to those meetings and our teachers and answer questions on issues and topics that are relevant, that are being discussed at the board, as well as issues and topics that come up. And then that will feed up to a district-wide, I think it's currently called DAC, the District-Wide Advisory Council, and then adding, Director Jackson, a specialized group for parents who are parents with students with special needs, and then another one with parents who have children who are still emerging English learners as well. So those will be two extra specific parent groups that come together.
Thank you. Director Jackson, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, just one more. Also dealing with, as we know, the big widespread of the trauma-informed care. Would that be under the new FACE, dealing with that issue?
So addressing trauma, Office of Board Governance, it looks like you are ready to jump in.
Just based on the way it's written now, those would be under SASE, under Student Achievement and School Innovation, and would have that connection to those topics.
Trauma-informed care, not even with the families?
That could be, I could see where it's an important topic either way, and it could be under the family and community engagement, one of the topics that is discussed. And the way the topics went in the past when Director Leonard was introducing that process was really to hear what were those urgent topics that people were talking about and wanted to talk about, and creating a forum around those at that time. So safety at the time when we were talking about SROs, and lead when we were talking about lead. So really leaning in and listening to that. So It could be, that is really up to the board to determine if it should be there, the trauma-informed piece, but I can see how it can be connected to the schools, especially in the structure that Dr. Casalius has talked about in really circling the school communities with those supports.
Okay. And I said only because all trauma is not related to academics.
Yeah.
So to deal with the family portion, to be under face. That's all.
Okay. Director Simpson, did you have any follow-up? Okay. And maybe that's something for Director Ferguson under the FACE committee. How are we engaging our families around the traumas that we see every day that aren't necessarily related? They're not just math related. Sometimes trauma is, outside of that. So, and yes, Director Ferguson, do you have any?
Superintendent, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but in family and community engagement, will you have an office there within that office that deals with trauma that students are facing?
Administration, do you have any?
Director O'Halloran and Director Ferguson, that currently sits in academics, but it is something I could bring back to the team. I just want to make sure that we have a really coherent vision and charge for where we should have that located. Obviously, it impacts many, many different aspects of families, communities, and our students' lives. So we have our crisis prevention team and we have our trauma team. They do different work. We have our counselors, we have our social workers, and really I need to still have time to meet with all of them and see how they're providing their services to students directly, individually, how they're providing students to students with special needs or community-wide services. How are we partnering with our violence interrupters and others within the community? And so I think that there's a lot I still need to learn from our team, but that's something I also would love to bring back some recommendations to the board and maybe a report on what we are doing currently first, and then better understand that and then decide later where we might see that better fitting. I just don't know enough about it just yet.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have Director Simpson?
So, yeah, I think that it's just interesting because trauma does affect our families, but it is such a huge part also of a school, the innovation, the academics, the climate and culture within a building. So I think it's really a very valid topic for the FACE committee to put on their agenda because I think that feedback could really help drive some of what comes to SASE. It could kind of inform then some of the things that are coming to SASE too. So I think that's just a nice way to work together on that.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions related to this item? Okay.
Chair O'Halloran, I just have
Yes.
one other item. I think also a family and community engagement committee that the chair would probably be working with the families to understand what those agendas would have on them too. So I think the agendas that are on a family and community engagement agenda probably are really driven by the families themselves. And so I think that they'll bring those topics to us that are of their biggest concern and put those on the agenda.
Okay.
We'd need to find a way to do that, though.
Yeah. Thank you. Madam Secretary, did you have a question or a comment?
Just kind of adding on to that, Chair O'Halloran, members of the board, the family and community engagement might discuss budget in a meeting because that would be just as urgent in a discussion of topic, or in any of the other committee topics could be a potential discussion at the family and community engagement. So the idea, I think, that Director Ferguson was really trying to bring forward was how do we engage our families and communities in all of our discussions and provide a very active and living space for that to continuously happen each month.
Precisely.
Fantastic. I'm very excited to see where this committee goes. If, at such time we could get a motion on this item. So what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Simpson.
I guess I move to approve, I guess this will be the Office of Board Governance recommendation for the change in both the name of PACE to now FACE and any restructuring that needs to happen.
And to work with the administration.
And to work with the
develop
administration, yes.
Do you see how we're already working together on even just the motion? Do we need a second, Madam Secretary?
We do not.
We
I'm just
do
going
not.
to mention
All
a
right.
little bit of the language piece. The Office of Board Governance can't technically recommend this one, but to approve the changes to committees as presented in the background item and to work with the administration in building out that work.
Fantastic.
That is
Oh, President
exactly what I was
Zambor,
gonna
wait,
say.
I have Director Zambor's hand is up.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. I do have a question. Will we bring back a red line version to LRP for both committees?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Simpson's motion to approve the changes to committees as presented in the background to this item and to work with the administration in setting the design of that committee. Director Ferguson.
Aye.
Director Fons.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Reza.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Director Zomber.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye,
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 3 is action on a request to approve the long-term capital improvement plan. The recommendation is that the board approve the long-term capital improvement plan with the modifications for FY26.
Thank you. Would the administration please present the item?
Chair O'Halloran and members of the board, Brenda Caselius, Superintendent. This evening, I'm joined by Aisha Sava, Chief Financial Officer, and Nick Simram, Budget Director, and Mike Terza, Interim Facilities and Maintenance Lead, to help us with an overview of our capital improvement plan. During this overview, the team will touch on some lead updates with a monthly lead report to follow at our June 17 SPB meeting. And the team will also touch on our deferred maintenance areas with a full report coming this fall. I'll now turn it over to Ms. Sava to get us started on the overview.
Good evening, Chair O'Halloran and fellow board members. This evening, we are bringing to you our modified capital improvement plan. This plan is modified in order to include our lead stabilization efforts. So in order to use our long-term capital improvement trust fund, we have to have a capital improvement plan that is submitted to the school board and approved by the school board. So now I will turn it over to Mr. Terza, who will give you an overview of the actual capital improvement plan. Thank you.
Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Mike Terza, Interim Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services. Again, as Ms. Aicha Sawa indicated, the long-term capital improvement plan is a major funding source for our lead stabilization efforts. We're looking to spend close to $60 million out of that fund in order to get the 106 buildings that are currently viewed as having lead exposure in them cleaned up in the fiscal year 2025, 2026. Most of those funds will be used for services that are going to be provided by, we have a construction manager, we have the necessary time and materials for the paint stabilization, we have efforts along moving the various school equipment and supplies in and out of classrooms, and also for the various cleaning services that we need. We expect that the $16 million should cover the 106 schools that we are going to be doing. As we have gone along with this process, we're getting a little better at our forecasting of costs, so we feel fairly confident in that. Some of the other funding that we're going to be doing is 21 additional staff members that will basically help make sure that the situation and the stabilization continues over the course of the year, that this isn't just a one-time effort. So the additional painters, plasters, and various people like that, if there is a situation that occurs, we'll get on it right away. And we expect that there will be times when walls get damaged, doors get damaged and things like that, but this will give us the resources to address them quickly and accurately in conjunction with all the necessary public health and DHS rules and regulations. Included in the request is also a construction manager, because we're anticipating that there's going to be a number of activities that are going to go in 2026, 2025, 26 school year around the long-range facilities master plan. And so as that work begins, we're going to need to have some additional help there. Also, the 21 additional staff members include 3 environmental specialists who will be going out to the schools to make sure that any issues, that the rules and the regulations that are required under the Public Health Department and under DHS are completely and fully conformed and followed. Some of the other issues that we're going to be funding out of the long-term capital improvement plan is that we're going to be using $1.5 million to buy the furniture, supplies, equipment, that is needed over the course of the 2025-26 school year to do this work. There's going to be an additional $4.3 million that's going to keep the district in compliance with just its daily work. Things such as safety code violation, code compliance efforts, district-wide purchases such as something as basic as salt for the walkways, herbicides for lawn care and things like that. That anything that requires us to maintain a certain level of service, this is the funding that will be used that for. There's also going to be in that amount about $2 million used to purchase the new safety metal detectors that are going to be in for all of our high schools. Finally, there's going to be approximately $3 million that's going to be used for the most critical aspects of our deferred maintenance. They're listed in the items like a roof for Hartford Avenue, a water heating system for Bayview, a fire alarm system for Reagan, a chairlift at the Academy of Accelerated Learning, and a water heater system also at Hayes at Kosciuszko campus. With that said, I'm here to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any public speaker slips on this item? Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from committee members? Director Jackson.
Absolutely. So in conjunction with everything, first off, I'm happy to see this plan happening, probably more so than anybody understanding the construction needs of our schools. But also will Heather Dixell down at Department of Facility and Maintenance, who does a great job with our Healthy Green schools, will she be a part of this process too, to help our schools become more healthy as well?
Administration?
Director O'Halloran and Director Jackson, yes, she's part of our sustainability efforts, and as we are going through the schools, as we can use items that are quote green and things like that, we definitely are using them. I think she's going to be really important in the long-range facilities master plan and how we use those green initiatives in the development of that plan.
Do you have any follow-up, Director Jackson?
Yeah, so in conjunction, and I'm glad that she's is. A lot of people, well, a lot of us in general may not know about her, but this woman has been doing great work in that space, so just wanted to make sure that she was a part of that. Also, once again, and I haven't scheduled it yet with Mr. Galvan, what I walked through for my 2 schools as well to be a part of that new operations plan as well. So, but glad to hear about it, though.
Okay. Thank you, Director Jackson. Once again, I would like to make sure that both Townsend and Rufus King High School get incorporated into the Perkins, Eastman, and long-range facility planning. I think Director Jackson has asked several times to make sure that he gets a walkthrough with the team. So hoping we can schedule that. But I did see administration maybe had a comment related to the green schools. So we're going to take a step back.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Jackson, as you all know, because you interviewed me, I spent 2 years as the CEO of Fresh Energy, working on climate change issues and sustainability issues. I'm still a board member of Entente K-12, which is an organization that works with getting school buildings greener. And in Boston, we were able to pass a $4 billion bond to green our schools in Boston and upgrade all of our facilities. And so this is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I have met Heather and spoken with her. I think she's terrific, and they have a sustainability conference coming up. I can't remember the date just now, but I'm just really excited about being able to dig into that. Once I'm done with the more urgent matters, we will get to the other important matters as well.
Thank you, Administration. Do other committee members have questions or wish to make comments? I see Director Reza.
I have a question. Is there a contingency plan, like if costs run over the initial projects or if a new hazard are found in this budget?
Administration, how do you
I just want to make sure.
bring that to the board if something were to, if we saw an overrun? How does the board process that or be informed of that?
Chair O'Halloran and Director Reza, whenever there are risks that are being brought forward in our processes or contracts, we do make amendments to that. And you know, sometimes you have to seek new funding and new revenue sources to finish projects when they go over price.
Do you have follow-up, Director Reza?
Just one more. With the lead inspectors coordinating with the Milwaukee Health Department and to ensure, ongoing compliance, so we'll be working together.
Is there, can you speak to the coordination on the lead with the Milwaukee Health Department or maybe the state? How are we collaborating with experts?
Director Halloran, Director Reza, yes, we have a very good agreement with the Milwaukee Health Department. Mr. Michael Mannon has been very instrumental from the Health Department in getting us on the right track of how to do this, and he's been watching that. We have been learning how to do it correctly, and I expect that to be continuing. The 3 inspectors will be totally certified by both the local and the state agencies to do that, and I would expect all 3 of them to work closely with both governing agencies, the Health Department and the Department of Health Services at the state.
Chair O'Halloran.
Yes, Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Terza. I also wanted to say that, and I'm not sure the public knows, but I was informed by Mike Tortoritis at the city health department that the federal health department has reinstated their CDC lead workers. And so we anticipate being able to get some support. So that's good. And I want to thank Senator Baldwin for bringing attention to the matter and for our incredible families telling their stories. I think it matters when you hear from families. And I think that their voices were heard. And I'm happy that the federal government has reinstated these workers. And I hope that soon Milwaukee Public Schools will feel the support from our CDC colleagues. Also, I do want to say that we are continuously improving in our lead abatement, and we look forward to our monthly reports that we'll be giving to all of you and the lead action plan that you did. Just know that we continue to work with our staff, continue to train our staff, and as we see things that we need to continue to shore up, we will continue to shore up. Like I said last Tuesday night, we are a continuous improvement school, and we are continuing to learn, grow, admit where we fall short, and shore up where we can, so that we can create an excellent response to this lead issue.
Thank you, Administration. Do any other committee members wish to make comments, ask questions? I see Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. It was in February of 2024 that the administration brought forward an investment plan for the dollars under the Capital Improvement Trust Fund. And I wasn't sure if this expenditure outlay, is there any consideration that we will actually modify our investment plan for the dollars, recognizing that we'll have these outlays now as opposed to what was originally planned for the 10-year investment plan at that time?
Thank you, Administration.
Chair O'Halloran and Mr. Chasen, I'd love to see that 2024 plan and bring forward any amendments that we would need to make to that plan so that we're in compliance with that. So if you could give me that, that'd be great. As we begin to continually consider that. I think also next year when we come back with the full Perkins-Eastman study, that's going to also inform how we are looking at our deferred maintenance issues within our schools, and also help us to prioritize, the very difficult decisions. Again, I'm going to say it 100 times so that people know these hard decisions are coming. This is also part of those big decisions that we have to make. So we'll bring that back. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Director Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. My question is related to the purchasing of safety metal detector scanners for all high schools. When a couple of months ago, the administration was sending emails out to the principals asking them about equipment. And because I think at the time, the idea was that they were going to come out of their school budgets. So some schools were hesitant to get the new technology because they felt they couldn't afford it. So from what we heard tonight from Mr. Terza, can we conclude that all of the high schools getting these safety metal detectors, that's going to come out of the central office budget?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran and Director Ferguson, we have set aside money in the capital improvement plan to purchase these items. They're the new AI technology scanners. This week, our team, our safety team, along with our principals and our regional superintendent for high schools, has been assessing a couple different types of brands and vendors. And so we're hopeful that we can come to an agreement on the types of scanners that we'll have. Right now, they want to make sure all of them detect weapons, like guns. We just want to make sure that they're also detecting the other items that the principals feel as though are important for them to also detect. So we'll have ongoing assessment of those new scanners that we're going to have in our high schools and I believe middle schools as well. And we're going to be able to then look at the effectiveness of those scanners. They'll also, there's money set aside also for a Safe Schools Hub where all of this information will go into that we monitor. And then we can quickly access that information and have that information in order to better respond to safety issues within our schools.
Follow-up, Director Ferguson?
Yes, just one follow-up. When do you anticipate this new technology being on the ground and in use at our schools?
Administration.
Chair O'Halloran, Director Ferguson, we anticipate trying to get that by this fall.
Okay.
I don't know if it will be by school start, given, we're on a tight timeline here to get them ordered and get them installed. But our goal is to have them by this fall.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to then pass the gavel, because then I have two questions related to that. Okay, so related to the scanning, so what I'm hearing is they're, scanners of the future, and I'm just wondering about like the student experience of going through. Is it a seamless? I think somebody has spoken to this issue in the past, but just, will students be expected to wait in long lines? Does this, out the door while they're going one by one through this, or does this make for a better welcome for our students?
Well, that's such a great question, Chair O'Halloran, and this is a response that I had from listening to students about how they feel welcomed into the schools. And so this is a student advisory brought this and said that, they have to go through the metal detectors, they get patted down, it's very challenging. Sometimes, it's frustrating and it gets them in a bad mood, and then, that develops the relationship with them and that starts their whole day off bad. So they really wanted to have a better experience coming into school, but they also wanted to feel safe. at school. And so I went to the team and asked what were we currently using and how was it being deployed, and they said they had already been engaged in looking at new technologies that were better, and so I'm just accelerating it a little bit more to try to get it in place for next year. But it is I observed I went to Riverside and observed one vendor, and kids just came in. They also have like these airport scanners too that they put their bags in, so then they go through their bags go through that, and then they can collect their bags at the end, but they go right through the scanners. There's no line back up or anything like that, so they'd get more backed up with the airport type scanner piece for backpacks than they would this, but we're hoping that the technology will grow and get better so that they wouldn't even have to take their backpack off, for instance. But at this time, the technology is not quite there yet. That's why when you go to see a Bucks game or a Brewers game and you're walking through, you don't get to bring your big bags in. And then they'll check your bags when you go through.
Any follow-up?
I do have one follow-up. There was an incident at South Stadium last year, and I think this was before you were even under consideration of coming here. So I was just wondering what kind of supports we might, if there's any consideration for our stadiums that aren't, I think we have the technology in place for like in a school building, but at some of our stadiums, which are standalone, I know we're using wands, but, and we use wands at high school events. I go through them to go to my son's soccer, but just if there's, if we're reviewing technology, if there is any consideration for those type of environments as well.
Administration.
Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan. That is in process already. In fact, Recreation did address that right away. They've already made some inroads and purchases to make sure that at stadiums specifically, we have a more mobile kind of scanning process. Also procedures to make sure that there are staff members there to ensure that that is being done. And then if perchance some emergency happens and staff members aren't there, there will be procedures that we will adjust who can enter that preceding game. So all that has been addressed, and we'll make sure that we bring you a more detailed update to that from Recreation.
Thank you. One more follow-up, and it's not related to the scanners. So what I heard was that we are going to get a more robust discussion about the deferred maintenance at a later date. And right now, this list is organized, it looks like, by largest to smallest. But I would appreciate if we could also have through the lens of like greatest to lowest risk, because something might only be $100,000, but it like significantly impacts student experience, or just to understand when we are talking about every single dollar is now under consideration. I don't want to necessarily just chip down by the biggest bucket if it's lowest risk. So that was just a request, more for the future then. Okay, I can take the gavel back. Thank you. Do any other committee members, Office of Accountability, Efficiency, OBG, Administration, any other comments, questions? Oh, okay. We'll start with Director Reza.
It's just one in regards to lead. Will there be like district, communication with like progress with, staff and family and students in regards to, updates of what's happening with the students? With the schools, I mean.
Administration?
Chair O'Halloran, Director Reza, Brenda Caselli, Superintendent, yes, we will be doing regular updates, and we're actually right now in the process of building a dashboard. We have a website that people can go on. If you go to the MPS website, you go to the bottom, there's on the right-hand side, I think it's orange colored circle that says lead. We'll be putting everything up there too. And then those schools that are being impacted will get personal letters from us so that they know that this work is going on and how it's going.
Any follow-up? Okay, and then I saw Director Jackson.
So Like Matt Chasen said earlier, we had a plan last year, and a lot of times we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I'm glad that you mentioned that investment plan, in addition to the safety plan as well. So you may not know, but last year there was a team that visited Atlanta to do a safety assessment plan, and myself and Director Leonard at the time was a part of that. So I say that to say, if, myself or another board member could also be a part of the safety plan moving forward, so that we can also give out the information to the public and understanding that we were a part of that team and our perspective will also take into consideration. So the same thing that we're doing now, we were able to see in Atlanta, as well as I think in Detroit. Those districts mirror our district as well. So to have the machines now being talked about and honestly now being put in place is finally, I'm glad that it's happening instead of just talk. So I appreciate you moving on that.
Oh, okay. I am going to go to, I see two hands over here. Or does administration want to respond? Okay. President Zambor.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. Just while we're talking about the scanners, I know there's a lot of conversation right now at the city about facial recognition technology, and just want to make sure that any equipment we might be considering does not use facial recognition technology. I think I don't know enough about this technology, but I think that's really important that we make sure we're not opening up, we're not creating another problem by trying to solve a different one.
Administration, do you have any insight about the current capabilities of what you're proposing as it pertains to facial recognition?
I know that Director Zomber, Chair O'Halloran, I know that they're looking at all of the AI functions of it. I don't specifically know about this issue. And I was actually asked the question also if we do have a policy around surveillance and around facial recognition. And so we'll be within that policy if we do have, we'll make sure that we're within all policies with whatever we would adopt.
Okay. Any follow-up? And then Director Herndon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm questioning where there's co-location of schools in a single building, one having security scanning processes and the other not. How will you handle that?
Administration?
Will both be required to have the system or not?
Director Herndon, Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee. Again, currently, that pertains to two very specific sites, and there are plans in the near future for those sites to move into their own space. Again, moving forward, depending upon any contracts that we may be entered into with some of the, in those charter locations, we will certainly address that proactively so that, again, whenever there's a co-location, they will have to fall under our rules in terms of that. And again, in those particular situations that we have that existing right now, those are due to a move, will be kind of ended at that time.
Any follow-up, Director Herndon?
Yes, thank you for that information, because my concern was it's a single roof. So whatever goes on in one area could go on in the other area. To me, it just never made sense in the first place. And if we're investing this funding to have this happen, then it should secure everybody in that building under that single roof.
Okay. I don't know that I need to pass the gavel. I did just want to piggyback one comment on President Zambor's. I just want to be really intentional if we do go down that route, that we ensure families that we're not sharing information, and I'm thinking in particular to families who are undocumented, that we are not collaborating or providing facial recognition or anything like that. We are in a time of heightened anxiety, and I just want to make sure that families don't feel frightened to come to support the PTA, their child's, performance or anything, that we are using this to keep families and students safe, and we're not using this to keep families out. So I think that, I just thank you for bringing that up because I hadn't even considered it. And administration, I don't know if you, you're nodding, but I didn't know if you had a comment or anything.
Chair O'Halloran, I worked on this in Boston, and we worked with the community and some civil rights lawyers and the chair of the board at that time really were on data sharing and what was shared with police, what was shared, with ICE, and really tightened the belt on what could be shared and not shared. So I think that, having a policy, a tight policy is really, really important around data sharing. Obviously, we have FERPA, but there are other entities who can get information on investigations and other things. So I just want to make sure that I haven't looked at our policies yet, but I will review our policies and make sure that they're tight.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, President Zombar.
Thank you, Chair O'Halloran. And maybe just to just kind of remind everyone and verify that before any contract with a vendor would be approved, the board would still have, we would know what equipment's being purchased. There'd be an opportunity for the public to comment. Is that correct?
Administration.
We can certainly do that, yes. And we could make a presentation. We are trying to do this before start of school. So it might be a special call meeting or something like that to have you look at it or bring it before the committee.
Okay.
And I might suggest that Director Zambor also look at the policy at that time.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Jackson.
We are on item 3, right?
We are on item 3.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah, I move to approve the recommendations of administration for the long-term capital improvement plan.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Jackson's motion to approve the administration's recommendations on the long-term capital improvement plan, Director Ferguson.
Aye.
Director Fons.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Reza.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Director Vanoy.
Aye.
Director Zomber.
Aye.
And Chair O'Halloran.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, item 4 having been previously withdrawn, there is no further business before the committee.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. As a reminder, we will see everybody on June 17th.